Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and I'm back this time with a real talk video, one that I said I would be forthcoming in my last review. And it's one that's kind of like been getting around a little bit because of some of a recent development in Clare Obscure. And it's something I kind of just wanted to talk about in general, and that is balance patches for single-player RPGs, or at least primarily single-player RPGs. And usually, in all things, I'm almost entirely on the side of developers all the time. Most of the time. I guess here is that one sort of broken clock is right or wrong twice a day moment where I actually have to take a little bit of a stand, and I'm sure some developers actually agree with me on this, but recently, Clare Obscure decided it was going to get a hotfix balance change for one of its moves because it was doing too much damage. And we'll get into that a little bit, and the specifics of that. But before we get into that, I kind of wanted to basically jump in here and talk about the general idea here that that a game comes out and it's not a bug, right? This is not something where something becomes unbeatable, something breaks the game, something causes the game to crash. This is not any of those things. This is simply, oh, this move is too good. We need to lessen the effects of a move because, oops, this is too good. And again, if when we're talking about, okay, you using a certain move or a certain way and it causes the game to crash, a missing number situation in Pokemon, totally get it. And that's totally where you want patches to happen. You want things to do that because, this is one of the advantages of having modern games with downloads and whatever is that you can fix critically broken things that may have been overseen. But that's not what's really happening here. And that's not what this real talk is about. This real talk is about when you got a game that is a single player RPG, especially when said RPG has multiple difficulty options like easy, normal, hard, or even bigger as if they have difficulty sliders in some way. And then you decide, oh, we need to hotfix something because something is too good. When I feel that's kind of a weird angle to take when you already have an easy mode. So something making the game too easy seems like a weird kind of thing. So let's just dive right into here with examples because I don't want to just talk nebulously about it forever. And that is, in Clare Obscure, there is a particular move on a particular character called Standall for the character male, and it's a single hit move that they, in their own words, Sandfall's own words, was that it was not very good during most of the development of the game, and then before the game came out for their final balance fix, before going gold, they decided to really up the damage output on this move. And they said they kind of overdid it, and it was making things too easy. Now, there's a lot of setup that goes into this, and one of the complaints or defenses for Sandfall removing or nerfing this said move is that it didn't require as much setup to make it super good. It only required a couple Pictos, a couple things equipped, and make it good. Well, here's the thing about this move. Number one, you can only have 6 spells on a character at a time. So one spell being really powerful is, okay, so you had to go in and make a choice. You had to make a choice that you were going to take up one of your 6 slots to use this spell. And then to use this spell, you had to make sure your character was in the Virtuoso stance. So during the battle, you would either have to do a move that resulted in going into Virtuoso stance, or you had a Picto that started you, or a weapon. There's a particular weapon that's extremely hard to get, an endgame weapon that starts you in the stance. So you're not just getting that weapon accidentally by any means. So you had to do that. You had to do one move to put you in the virtual stance, and then you can do this one move. But here's the other thing about Standall. Not only did you have to choose to sacrifice or use up 1/6 of your available slots to use the spell, not only did you need to have be in a particular stance for the character during the fight, not only did you need that, you needed specific Pictos that were going to give you damage multipliers on top of it, although, again, I guess not as many as others in the game. And then on top of all that, this is a single hit move. And it's for a single enemy. So it was not an AoE. It didn't say if you were in a fight with multiple enemies on the field, using this overpowered move would only hit one enemy once. And why that's important is if enemies put up shields and an enemy has even one shield up on it and you use this super move, the shield will absorb the damage and the enemy will not lose any HP. So for this super move that needed a hot fix, you needed to make sure that you unlocked it on your skill tree. You need to make sure that you equipped it in one of your 6 spell slots. You needed to also then make sure you were in a particular stance unique to the character, and then had a couple other pictos like roulette equipped as well. And then you needed to make sure that you were hitting a single enemy, and you could only hit that a single enemy. And you need to make sure that enemy didn't have any shields up on it so that it would absorb it. So you had to do all this stuff to one-shot an enemy. Now, when you go and face, say, a super boss, and it's the only enemy on the screen, obviously that's, okay, well, that makes the move kind of easy to do. But again, this was an insane amount of setup. This wasn't going into a battle and say, like, there is a move in the game called Death Bomb and At Death's Door, where you could go in and at the start of the fight, your character dies. And then from a picto, immediately explodes and dies. And then you have another picto that hurts all enemies when you die. Or maybe that's the same picto. The point is, you start the fight, every enemy on the screen takes immediate damage. And then your character will self-resurrect. Or not, if you didn't have the Resurrect Picto equipped. But anyways, you could do that where the vast majority of every enemy in the game, if you had the certain things equipped, you could start a fight and immediately win before anything even happened because the character would explode, kill themselves, and then kill everything around them. I did that. I did that on Verso a ton of the time throughout the game. So this was a move that wasn't multiple hits, wasn't multiple enemies. It was one hit on one enemy, and it was really good. Like, so good. In fact, you could one-shot the hardest boss in the game with this move. I did. So, yeah, apparently this was too much for Sandfall, and they got rid of it. And and again, I disagree with this mentality. They already had an easy mode in the game. So the game and again, going with their statement where they wanted the game to be broken. We still want you to build crazy builds, but this was just too good. Which I don't understand that statement. That feels contradictory in one sentence. You contradict yourself. We still want to have a game with a broken system. We want the game to have all these options that you could break it wide open, but this was too good. So do you want a broken game? Or do you not want a broken game? If the idea was we have such a flexible, unique battle system, and it is the best turn-based battle system I've ever played, and you want it to be super open, super loose, super broken, but then you sit there and say, well, that one move, that one move is too good. And the defenses I've seen for them doing this is like, yeah, it robs the player of challenges, against some of these super bosses if they can just one-shot everything, especially all the super bosses. They don't have to struggle, they don't have to learn, they don't have to do anything. And again, I say, that is the player's choice. Again, you don't stumble into this move accidentally. You have to know that this move set up in this way on this character, using a couple extra pictos is what does it, is what really makes the game super busted. No one is going to accidentally just be like, oh, I just made sure I had all these specific pictos equipped, made sure I unlocked this move on the skill tree, made sure I equipped it, and then made sure I got my character into Virtuoso stance, and then did this, and I accidentally was beating every single boss in the game in one hit. How could that have happened? Again, this was player choice. The player had the choice if they wanted to use a completely busted build or not. If they wanted the challenge was still there because there are still dozens of other moves per character in the game. There are still thousands and thousands of combinations of builds with Pictos and Luminas with all the different characters. There are many ways to play the game. And again, this wasn't even the most busted thing. Even before and since the nerfing of this move, people have found ways to do billions of damage with the right setup in this game. So again, is that next? Knowing that out there that there are ways to do even more damaging single moves in the game. I've watched it happen with Monoko and stuff. Does that mean they're next on the hotfix blocks? Does every time a game, someone finds some really broken mechanic, do they need to hotfix the game now? Because people knowing that will rob them of their challenge. It will rob them of experiencing the game as intended. And that's where I'm just like, look, man, and I'm not saying there should be some sort of law. I'm not saying, this needs to be, because look, it's the developer's game, and if they really feel They want to patch it. They should have every right every right to patch their own game. It's it's their product. They're selling it to us. But again, you are selling it to me. You are saying, hey, I have this game. It has this really open battle system. We want you to break it open, but if you break it too hard, we're going to patch it. So I don't like the precedent that sets. I think it's just a weird and kind of bad faith thing to say, like, we wanted this system to be super open ended, but we didn't want it to be that open ended. So, and again, single player RPG here, this does not affect any sort of multiplayer ranking system or anything of that nature. This is clearly just how you want to play it. It's like when, it's very much in the same vein of a developer saying, we don't like mods. Don't mod our game. Don't do anything to our game. Play the game as exactly as we sold it to you. You cannot touch it. You cannot modify it. Again, I'll go back to the analogy of, like, someone sells you a chair and then you decide, I'm going to chop the back of the chair off and turn it into a footstool. No, you can't do that. Like, it's a chair. I sold you a chair. You must always use it as a chair. And you'd be like, well, I bought it. It's now mine to do with what I wish. It's the same argument for mods, modifications of games. If I want to run around as Bert and Ernie in this game through a modification on whatever version, I don't think there should be any legal precedent against that. And I don't think the developers should be upset about that. But the developers that have embraced the modding community have done very well for themselves. CD Projekt Red, Bethesda, even Rockstar to a small extent. These are highly successful games, and people like to modify them. And again, modifying is a choice. You went in there, you replaced files, you did things to the game to change it. Now that's that's a bigger step than say, hey, this one move is extra broken. But again, it's the same mentality of like, well, we need to make sure that nobody can do anything to my game. Only the way I envision it being played is the only correct way. And I think that's a very dangerous way for any developer to think. I would highly recommend not doing that. This reminds me, of course, of another game that did it as well, and that was Elden Ring. There was the notoriously difficult Shadows of the Erdtree DLC, and they had a very, very tough final boss, Consort Radahn, and there was a build that I used to beat the last boss in Elden Ring. The build required you to go down a particular long side quest that was optional and go about it a certain way, complete a series of side quests in the DLC a very specific way to get a very specific weapon. And then you had to get another weapon in the base game that was a rare drop in a tiny, obscure corner of the world. And then you had to have particular medallions equipped and in particular spells equipped, and you had to respec your stat build a certain way. And what it ultimately let you do was use a spell that was, you cast a bunch of thorns that caused an insane amount of bleed, and it hurt and killed bosses real fast. And that's how I beat the final boss of Elden Ring. As I beat the final boss, a hotfix was rolled out to nerf that build of the game. And that's, again, it's another thing where it's like, why are we nerfing these single player experiences? Like, it's like you had all these systems in place in the game. It is an RPG. It is a role-playing game. It is meant to have many different variations of weapons and skills and magic and things that you can use. And then when someone looks at it and then figures out a mechanic, oh, this would make you really powerful. Here's an equipment build for you to run. Oh, this is really good. And then the developer gets mad and is like, no, we need to fix that. That's too good. Again, it comes off as like you're playing D&D with the world's most pissed off DM. It's a weird precedent. I don't understand. I really do not agree with it in any way, shape, or form. I know there were other nerfs to the original Elden Ring, such as the Hoarfrost Stomp and using the Mimic tier, and some of it, what you could argue, was it was ruining PvP. I think summons were technically not allowed initially if you just invaded someone's world, but either way, it's like the Frost Stomp was not hard to get. You just had to run to a single point in the world and hit a tiny little bug to get it, to get everyone to get this really good, magic spell. But again, it had to get nerfed because it's too good, and I think it's a mistake. And one way I can tell you it's kind of a mistake is look at the speed running community. Look at the awesome games done quick. Look at like classic RPGs and speedrunners for games like Final Fantasy VII, and heck, any of the other older Final Fantasy titles. Games, when they came out, they had no ability to patch these games whatsoever, and people are speedrunning these games and breaking world records. These would not be possible if these games were able to be patched. If the discoveries made that people could do these super low-level runs and win these huge, long RPGs through particular weapons, builds, and exploits and whatever. Imagine if that was taken away, and we live in a world now where no RPGs are ever going to be able to have crazy speed run and world records because, oh no, someone discovered something good, we must patch that out. It robs the game of a whole sort of like second life that it can take on in the speedrunning community because we become so obsessed with making sure that the game is played exactly how we, the developer, intended. Again, when you're a developer, and I understand that every project is really a labor of love, but sometimes like a kid, you kind of got to let it just grow and be its own thing. Let it become its own thing. Try to imagine a world where Skyrim had a fierce anti-modding stance from Bethesda, and the game was just as buggy, today as it was on launch. Imagine if there was no player fix. Imagine if there's no beautification mod for the game. Like, just trying to imagine that. Like, you cannot get so. I think it's dangerous to get so attached to your game that you're like, no, everyone must experience it in a particular way. When people are discovering and enjoying multiple new ways of playing your game. Again, moving this into a little bit into fighting games, the most broken game, one of the most broken games of all time, is still competitively played and celebrated and loved to this day. And of course, I'm talking about Marvel vs. Capcom 2. They made that game very quickly. Balance was never on their minds. The director and developers of the game have straight up said they had no idea that it would have a competitive scene. They never even thought about a competitive scene. They just wanted to make a game with a bunch of cool characters doing cool stuff in it. And the game is broken, and there's only five really, really good characters, and the rest of the roster is whatever. But people love the game. People still watch the game. It's balance. Its imbalance is what makes the game in a way. And again, trying to go in and patch Marvel vs. Capcom 2, nerf Magneto, Storm, Sentinel, Psylocke. Like, could you imagine how upset people would be? Like, how wrong that would feel to balance patch a fighting game. And that's a competitive game with online modes now in recent re-releases. I mean, going all the way back here, we're talking about single-player RPGs in which no one is affected. Nobody's game is personally affected from me or anyone else sitting alone at their home playing a game in a unique way or using a busted mechanic. That affects absolutely no one other than the player who optionally chose to do that of their own free will. That is, like, no one else is affected by that. So I don't like it when developers look at that and go, no, that's not the way we wanted you to do it. You need to do it our way. And it's like, you sold me a product. Let me play the product how I want. And let broken builds be broken. Just let it go. Let it happen. Like, even with platformers and Metroidvanias and whatnot, people discover exploits and game skips and sequence breaking, and imagine if people were trying to patch Super Metroid to get rid of sequence breaking. That would destroy the life that game has taken on since then. So again, stop trying to destroy your own game's like second life. Stop trying to be fun police and say, okay, this move is too good. We need you to try some other way. And it's like, people who knew that a move was, like, again, with Standall and Clare Obscure in particular, you did not walk into that by any sort of accident. You were told it, you heard about it, you just, you saw a video on it, and then you made that choice. And even if some miracle, you did stumble into, oh, that move's really good. Oh, that move is so good, it's trivializing everything. You still make the choice as a single player in a single player RPG to go, you know what? I know this move is busted. I'm going to keep using it because I like busting. I like busting, makes me feel good. I like breaking all the bosses in one hit. It's no different than someone saying, you know what? I like playing the game on story mode. I will play it on story mode. I don't want the bosses to take a half hour. I want to blaze through the game. So let people blaze through these games. Don't balance adjust your single player RPG, because all it does at the end of the day is rob the player of choice that you didn't see was there, but happened, but was sort of a beautiful accident. Just let people enjoy things how they want to. Again, a terrible precedent. I don't agree with it. I love the game. I think the developer, made a absolutely wonderful passion project. This is not saying that I don't like the developer, I don't like the game. I just don't like this idea. And this goes especially not just for Sandfall. This is a big one on FromSoft. In fact, it's even worse because FromSoft continuously did it. But I'm not really the hugest fan of FromSoft in general. But any developer who wants to go out there and nerf, balance adjust their single player RPG, because especially in the vein of something was too good, that's where I draw the line and say, you know what, that's part of the beauty of games, is they take on a life of their own, and then people discover things, like they discover the debug menu in classic Sonic 2, and then they just use it and they have fun with it, even though it was never meant to be discovered or used by normal players. But it lets the game have this whole extra life. It's fun seeing numbers go up. So in the future, if any developer is listening to this video, please, if you make a single player game, don't balance adjust it because something discovered was too good. Just let it be a cool little secret for people to discover and talk about and share with others. That is a huge part of the fun, especially in RPGs. That's all I got to say on this one. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the channel. Later, dudes.